4th of July. So let's show them some fireworks. Hold on!
They like to get the landmarks.
Greetings and welcome to the Modern Alchemist channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is Honest Movie Reviews and Esoteric Smackdown. Now, there's going to be a couple spoilers in here, they're minor, little tiny baby ones, but I'm being very conservative in my interpretation of spoilers. So I'm not going to tell you any plot points or anything else like that, but definitely I will share with you as a component of the review why I believe people legitimately did not enjoy this movie, okay? So let's begin. First off, I went and saw Independence Day Resurgence this morning. I went in knowing that it was probably not going to be the best. I totally did. And so that's what I do when I know the movie's going to be like, maybe not so good. So I went in with that, plus I just knew that Rotten Tomatoes had beaten it alive at like a 20-something%. So, you know, I was ready for it. Now, you have to contrast this experience with my first experience in 1996. I was going to school at the time at Utah Valley University, and my wife and my family and I, we decided to hit the movies. It was a really popular thing, you know, and it was 4th of July, and so we got tickets to go see it on opening night on the 4th of July, not knowing that the theater that we had gone to was actually scheduled by a whole about 300 extras from the movie. All the guys who were the bikers who drove all of the RVs and the motorcycles, those kind of guys, they were all in the theater lining both sides of the theater. And when their main dude, who was the pilot who wore the reflective glasses, who was always kind of behind the president and stuff, he's always just behind the scenes. That guy was their man. It was very exciting. So every time he showed up on the screen, they're all screaming and yelling, and there was so much positive energy in the theater. It was absolutely packed. It was a super awesome, wonderful time. Just great. This morning I saw it, and there was about half a dozen of us in the theater. The movie itself began wonderfully. In fact, I'm going to discuss the first act of the movie with you in the esoteric breakdown part, but it looked so good, it was so promising. The movie begins where we've recovered all this technology, and of course, what would we do with it if this kind of technology was spread all across planet Earth? It's the great equalizer. Essentially, we all have the same stuff to decrypt and decipher, and whoever gets to it first wins, except for we've all been confronted with the fact we're not alone. So this then pulls everyone together into a big world government situation, exactly as I've talked about expecting. And, you know, we're going to blend this together because I can see it overlapping. So let's do that. This pulls it then together exactly as I discussed in my Age of Aquarius video. This is what I expect to see out of every movie now, this theme of coming together as one world where we're all brothers and sisters together in this, and those who are trying to fight against it are always going to be labeled terrorists, okay? And regardless of what they're doing, there are no more freedom fighters because we're not fighting about freedom anymore. The age of Pisces is over, and as such, so with this movie, there's no fighting and bickering, and they go to great lengths to talk about how awesome that is in this movie. So that, as a component of the first act, I was like, wow, we're kind of going to take this someplace, and we've occupied the entire solar system by the full end of the first act, and all the way out to the planet Saturn. And of course, there was a number of references to Saturn in the first act of the movie, which of course is a key indicator that this is another, like, hello, we're telling you about the age you are living in, and this is the potential. And the technological advances seem to me, although they throw the word cold fusion around, They never bother explaining it, and all of the functional equipment that you see using is electromagnetic. So they have these magnetic vehicles that can then essentially fly at any speed necessary. Of course, they call it a cold fusion drive. It's because they're trying to just pay homage to that dying idea. Okay, once everyone gets on board with an electric universe model, you're going to see technology just go pew, because that's how it will work. Because it's so simple, it takes people who are trained in these fields to just cut loose, but they have to abandon the whole paradigm of hammers in favor of a paradigm of life and electricity. I digress, but that's because there's not so much great things to talk about in this movie. Essentially, this is what I would say for you as an effective syllogism for this movie. As Star Wars Episode 7 was to Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, so too, the Independence Day Resurgence is to Independence Day. And by that I mean, both of the earlier movies were better, even though the latter movies looked cooler. Okay, both of the earlier movies had a story which felt new-ish or original, and this one here, they both either, well, both of them actually, in Episode 7 in Star Wars or this movie, literally scene for scene reshoot some of the stuff. And if they're not exactly shooting it from the perspective of sitting on the harbor looking at the wave coming in, now you're on the wave coming into the harbor. I mean, literally. They couldn't get Will Smith to show up, so instead, at the beginning of the movie, you have a portrait of Will Smith with the boy who is supposed to be his son, who's taken after his father. You know what, we're going to do a total esoteric breakdown because I will talk about this. So let's just flash forward here. Esoteric breakdown. Let's do this. Okay, so esoteric breakdown. This movie is loaded with themes of an Aquarian age. As I said at the very beginning, it's just packed. It starts off with one world where we've set aside, well, here's what the president says.
On this day in 1996, the world escaped the clutches of extinction. But in their sacrifice, we found the technology to build a stronger and safer Earth. Because our survival is only possible when we stand together.
Okay, and of course we have a female president. You have all the characters from the original movie, most all of them they could gather together, and it's sort of like they pull them up and then they sort of, you know, you wait for them to die, essentially. But as they're drawn up and as the new groupings of characters are drawn up, they wind up pairing them off in these dualistic patterns where you have two pillars every single time. So the main kind of maverick wild card guy who's blondish, he's another Australian actor. Anyway, you see a lot of him. None of these guys are memorable. I'm sorry, just none of them. I can't pull anything that they said that in the movie that was memorable. Nothing. No memorable lines. Even Jeff Goldblum doesn't say any memorable lines in this one, and he's not re-quoting old memorable lines from previous movies, like Must Go Faster. None of that. None of that magic is there. But what they do is they'll pair off, for instance, a Caucasian pilot with an African-American pilot, which is the son of Will Smith, and now you've got the two pillars, and the African-American pilot's the rule keeper, and he's by the book, and he does everything right, and he always winds up standing on the right of the character who's the maverick pilot, who's the blonde guy, who just does everything, and he's always saving people, right? He's totally the savior. So you get that kind of a pairing off there. But it's not really done to any great effect other than it's just sort of there, you know. Whereas, for instance, to extraordinary effect, by contrast, is the movie Central Intelligence with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart. Now that one, I did that review and I loved that movie. That was great, and it was loaded with esoteric references. This one, nope. This is what happens when these movie franchises sort of detach from understanding the basis of what makes a successful plotline work. And then they just kind of do whatever, right? They just sort of go through the motions. And that was very much the feeling at the end of this movie. Other than the thing that probably irritated everyone was the massive physics-free zones. Like lots and lots of them everywhere. Just stuff where people should die or shouldn't recover from or be punched or hit or... No, it's just ridiculous. So there's all of that. And that's it. That's it, man. This movie did not warrant even another minute, so it was okay. Like, it would be a video that you would run. Seriously, this is how I evaluate it. This is the kind of movie that you would run in the background while doing housework or some other stuff. It literally is one of those kind of movies. And if you know what I'm talking about, I know you are out there. I know you guys are out there who will like pop a favorite movie on and just let that run in the background, because it's essentially just kind of white noise. Which is probably the worst possible review you can give a movie, right? It's like white noise that's comforting in the background. So if you go see it, it definitely, there's a lot to see, a lot of explosions, you know, Roland Emmerich delivers with everything. You get a really cool vision of the future, and it's very prequel-esque, like where it opens you up like, hey dudes, we're totally getting ready to make some sequels, so get ready. And so they set you up for that, like a lot more. So the sequel that no one actually asked for is not really a sequel so much as a, hey, remember when we did this thing? Well, now we are doing this other thing, and we're going to take it as far into space as we can. And that's really where they're going with this. All right, that's it. I really, you know, it simply is a pleasure to go to the movies, if only to talk to you guys about them and share with you some of my observations. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this has been Honest Reviews and Esoteric Smackdown. I went and saw Independence Day today, Resurgence, and I would give it 2 out of 5 dramatically oversized, weather-inducing, but didn't happen that way, planetary excavating satellite orbital space platforms that descend on the Earth and fill up the entire Atlantic Sea basin. Dude, seriously? Okay, 1. Well, I'll give it 1.5. 1.5 space saucers. The more I think about it, I better stop. It's gonna lose more as I talk. I'll talk to you guys later. You have a wonderful day, and I'll see you at the movies. Bye-bye.